Preheated.
Yes, it's like preheating your oven.
That's right.
Set the stream to 355 degrees, please.
Who cooks anything at 355?
Those extra 5 degrees, man, make a big
important.
difference.
I'm telling you, if you've not cooked at 355 degrees, you need to start. Like,
Okay,
it will be life-changing.
I actually, let me take that back. When I was in middle school, in high school, I got into doing a lot of like baking and different things like that, and our oven was actually off because I bought an internal thermometer, and it was off by about 5 degrees. So now I actually remember baking things at 355, 430. Yeah. So I apologize.
Yeah, as you should. Like, I was about ready to throw down on that.
Temperature is dependent on altitude, and you have to do all those little disclaimers.
Yes, your mileage may vary.
Yeah, it could be 353. We don't know.
Yeah, I don't know that I do 353. That's just crossing the line right there.
Yeah, show me an oven that can actually do a single digit.
Well, I mean,
and
for the longest time, I had an oven that was set with a dial. So, I mean,
yeah,
I can find you a picture.
Well, and the thing about it, my grandfather had one for a long time, and the thing about the way the ovens heat and stuff like that, like it's just this, it's a cycle. So they're going way over temperature, and then they're cooling off, and so you just have this proverbial wave. So, depending on, it's arbitrary.
Oh yeah,
that's how my central air works as well.
Yes, and I had to make a special homemade thermostat just because I got tired of that wave being way too short. So it was short cycling my furnace system. So I built with a Raspberry Pi and an ESP32 my own thermostat. And I have an adjustable gap that I can build.
Now that's
nice.
That's getting nerdy with it.
Oh yes, I get nerdy with a lot of it, but
yeah, I haven't had to go quite that far, but
I never had to go that far. But
I am at the point where I am about to automate the register vents.
Yes,
in my
I
house.
did some of that too at one point. Like not all of them, but just certain vents.
Yeah, that's me, especially the ones in my basement, and things like that. Because like right now, well, it depends on the day of the week in St. Louis as to whether it's cold or hot. We had 70+ degree temperatures earlier this weekend, and but I got GPU mining going down in the basement, so I don't need any heat coming to the basement whatsoever, and I'd rather push all that up. But there's times where I have to open and close. One's upstairs. I'm like, I'd rather just be able to be like, redirect all the heat to the bedrooms.
Yep. Yeah, I have it set up so that way when I'm like out traveling or whatever, it only heats the rooms that actually need to be heated. Whereas like the rooms with no plumbing don't really need to be heated. And then I've also got the bedroom set up so if I'm on my way back from traveling, it can like dump all that heat straight to the bedroom and heat it all.
That's kind of what I want.
Yep. And then you put little ESP32 with thermostat unit, like with the thermometer units in those various rooms, and you can have like actual temperature controlled rooms. Individual rooms.
Yeah, it's basically like like the sensors for like the Ecobee and stuff like that. Doing the same thing.
Except that instead of costing like $20 to $25 a piece, you can get it
costs
for
like
literally. It's like $2.50.
Yeah, I have like a container of like probably 30 ESP32s, and I forgot what the other ones are. Whatever the step up from that.
8266s?
Yes, yeah, those.
Yep.
Yeah.
For those of you just tuning in, you've wandered into DIY HVAC systems with Noah and Tim.
It's a new spin-off webcast we're doing.
It's a new spin-off webcast that we're starting.
But is your HVAC vulnerable to Log4j?
Possibly.
It might be, actually.
It's like that meme. It's like, there's no Log4j on the toaster. Hang on, let me check this right quick.
Java runs on over 1 billion devices. Just saying.
Who knew that was a threat?
Yeah, that wasn't like everyone thought it was like, oh, that's just a brag, and they're like, no, that it means so much more.
It's terrifying.
We get better advice from the guys at Home Depot. There we go. There's an endorsement.
We strive for such status.
Is that really status though? Who knows?
All I'm saying is that if you're building yourself a DIY automated thermostat control system, just don't use Java. There are better options out there.
You can use Java, just don't log.
Just don't log. True. Yeah. Yeah.
I know a few companies that really weren't impacted.
Just a few, right? Just a few. All right, it's 4:30 on the East Coast. It's about time to start this thing. Are you two ready to go?
No.
Absolutely.
Perfect. That's the way we like it. All right, I'm going to hit the big video. We're going to start this off. Hey, it's Talking About News. This is the final broadcast of 2021. And we've got a small crew right now. We may have a couple other people popping in a little bit later. Maybe a drive-by. We don't know if that's going to work out, but we'll see. So today we've got me, of course. I'm Ryan, the shootist. And we've got Noah. I want to say hi, Noah.
Hello.
So now the audio people know your voice, so we can put voices to names, because we always forget to do that part we always forget about the audio people, but they are there. And then we got Tim.
Hi.
There we go. Thank you, Tim. And they've got a couple of topics that they're really itching to talk about, and I'm going to let them talk because they do a better job than I do. But Noah, I'm going to throw it to you because you got a real good one that you've been sitting on this one for like a week and a half. And you're ready to go.
I mean, arguably longer, but yeah. So I had one that I picked out a little bit that I was like, we got to talk about this, guys, just because I find it interesting anyhow. For those of you who don't know, Apple has released. Yeah, Ryan scrolls to the bottom for it because it's been that long.
Yeah.
Apple has released an Android app that now helps you track. Well, it doesn't do the tracking part of AirTags. But what it does, if your car is tagged or something like that, like it'll tell you, like, hey, by the way, there's an AirTag that's been following you around for a while. And I mean, like that's good because it's become a problem. But the thing about this is, like, I would almost argue that Apple created this problem simply so that they could create this app, because when it comes to this kind of a product, it's all about the network. We were talking about Tile the other day. And well, I thought this was Apple's version of Tile. Well, it kind of is. The thing that makes it so much like worse, though, is that they've literally, with Tile, you had to download an app, as I've said in the past. You download the app, you're now part of their network. Apple didn't let you download an app. There's no way to opt out of their network that I'm aware of, anyhow. If you have an iPhone, you're in that network. So now all of those devices were in there. Well, it gets worse now, because now people are worried that people are tracking them with these AirTags, and so they're going to go download the app on the Google side of things, so that way they can make sure they're not being tracked. But at the same point, you know that these apps are still sending data in to Apple, basically increasing the length of their network. So it's like they created the problem and created the solution. It reeks, as we said, like it reeks of like, that's not a problem, this is a feature. Yeah, I'm just very hint about that, I guess.
You have some thoughts.
I have thoughts. I do not appreciate this Apple.
What do you think, Tim?
So I've got to admit, I haven't been so much up to date on the whole AirTag situation. It was one of those things when it first came out, I was like, oh, this is just Apple's version of Tile, and just kind of wrote it off and didn't really pay it any attention. But this past weekend, surfing Twitter and things, I actually found a couple of stories, primarily dealing with females that had been essentially tagged with these AirTags, and tracked and stuff like that. And I started looking into just like how terrifying this ability that Apple has created, and the ability to, the fact is, as Noah said, like you don't get to opt out of this network. And if you're not familiar with kind of how AirTags work, is they essentially piggyback off of the network of any existing Apple device. And so if I had a tag like walking through a mall or something like that, even if I don't have an iPhone, it will communicate to any iPhone or iPad or probably iWatch or anything else like that, that it can, in the proximity, it will then, that device will ping out and say, Apple, here's where I'm at. And so you can get this real-time tracking of this seemingly offline device, and the security implications from that, from a privacy perspective, as far as like your physical location stuff, the stuff that I was seeing on Twitter where females had talked about instances where their purses have been tagged or their vehicles been tagged and stuff. It's terrifying. And then you add to Noah's point this, we're just going to release an Android app that will notify you in the similar manner that an iPhone will let you know that there's a tag that's for traveling with you or is in your proximity for an extended period of time. It really just, to me, it just extends that network, as Noah said, and I'm not okay with it.
I mean, in theory, if you were a conscientious Android user and someone were to try to tag you and you were to drive out into the middle of nowhere, that tag would not be able to make a signal as long as nobody with an iPhone was around. Now, if you have the app on there, you can literally be using your own Android phone to track you. I mean, it was bad enough when it could be your own iPhone tracking you, but now it's your off-network device could also be tracking you as well, and relaying through your LTE connection to tell the location of people trying to do that. And then on top of that, there's all this, alert fatigue that's going to come with it too. I mean, these tags are becoming more and more popular to the point where you're just going to be traveling anyhow, and you get the alert like, oh, there's an AirTag following you. You're like, no, that's fine. Like, it's probably the one I put in my car to track my car, and they won't even think twice about it.
Yeah, I just see it being completely. I mean, frankly, to me, it's irresponsible, and I don't say that lightly, but like putting on the hackers, kind of security hat, having built sensor networks in the past for, we'll call it traffic flow analysis, but we'll just be blunt. It was for basically tracking devices through a given environment and stuff using wireless and Bluetooth and stuff. It's like, this is really cool. Like, it's like the ability to actually have something offline, be able to piggyback on those connections and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, that's really, really cool. Until I'm like, as I was talking right before the show, based off of reading all this stuff and all, I literally left my house today when my wife got back from something, and I had this thought. I was like, man, what if her vehicle got tagged? Like, I was just like, it's such an invasion of privacy and things like that I don't know what the answer, because I don't feel like Apple's going to come back from this, especially since they're, in my opinion, doubling down with the Android app, essentially getting to double their data sources and stuff. It's like, yeah, it doesn't matter if you have an iOS, we're still going to be able to get this data. That's rough.
Yeah.
Hey, but it helps me find stuff. Like, if I lose something.
It's the convenience. It's the convenience versus security. If we're getting convenience, we're always going to be giving something up. It's if it's 2 a.m. and you need to go to the gas station to buy a roll of toilet paper, yeah, you can do it, but it's going to cost you $4 or $5 for a single roll. Same thing in security. If we're this convenience that we're developing, especially with this always connected lifestyle that we have, where any bit of information, any bit of data is just a point and click away. Right. So there's massive ramifications for that.
Yeah, I have a varying opinion on this. So I think it's both good and bad at the same time, because what we've done is we've made it harder to hide in all scenarios, whether you're doing something good or doing something bad, right? And that's what the AirTag brings to the table, right? So it's like, it can be used for a force for good and for a force for bad, right? You can use it to track people that shouldn't be tracked. You can also put it on devices and recover stolen items for people who are, now it's harder to steal things. Putting on your kid, now it's harder to steal kids, right? Like, I mean, there's a bunch of kind of like, scenarios. So I guess my only point is that it's not all good and it's not all bad, right?
I completely agree. It's like, I mean, you can look at like some money. Money's good.
Sure.
Most people like it. It can be used to buy drugs. It can be used to pay for hitmen. It also can be used to pay for my child's medical bills.
Well, now you're talking about crypto.
Yeah,
that's exactly the argument for crypto, is good or bad there. So
it's every, you have to look at the intentions and stuff like that. My bigger concern is just what kind of avenue is this opening up? Is this going to be a Pandora's box kind of thing where the next generation is going to just be that much more invasive? While I don't agree that it has its benefits, I personally haven't ever used it and haven't had a need to. I just accept that I've lost my stuff and move on. But that's not an option for everybody.
What I was going to say is that this isn't really a new tech. This is just Apple finally coming around, and the big thing obviously is that every Apple device is participating. But they had Tiles, and they had like other brands that were also producing other kinds of similar devices. This is just
almost an inevitable thing.
Yeah,
that, they just finally came to jump in the pool. This is going to happen, so let's jump into it now and do what we can to mitigate the damage that we know can happen. I'm sure when Apple's design teams get on into the room and they're going to decide to do this, they've already thought about the flip side of what bad could happen. So from what I understand is the Android app thing was part of the roadmap for AirTags from the beginning. They just rolled it out piece by piece, and now they've got that Android piece out there.
Yeah, I could see in the future actually that becoming a standard for doing like tags or location devices like this,
like an open source standard.
A cross-platform where and then the other piece. I think the bigger piece with this one, and I think this is what we're really going back and forth about, is the fact you can't turn it off, right? Like you can't opt out. That's the real like security thing, right? And it's not necessarily just a security thing. It's more of just like an invasion that we feel like I should have the choice to participate in with, right?
I think that's fundamentally the biggest issue that I have, is the fact that if as a iPhone user or an iPad user or whatever, I don't get to opt out of it. I kind of look at it like when I guess it was Xfinity years ago announced that they were going to start broadcasting hotspots on all their residential routers and gateways and stuff, so that like as long as you're an Xfinity customer, you can pretty much use anybody's Wi-Fi from their home, and then it's on a separate network and stuff like that. I wasn't a big fan of that. They eventually made it so you could opt out and stuff like that. But the ability to not opt out of this network, I think, is probably the biggest issue that I have. But I sit here and go, okay, if I could opt out, what would the actual benefit be? Because that means my device isn't going to be participating in this. But if my device isn't participating in this, could this potentially put me or my family at a disadvantage from a security perspective, not knowing that, hey, there's a tag around you or something like that? That's just one of those things that you kind of we have to look at and go, weigh the pros and cons.
Yeah, like I said, both good and bad, right?
Yep.
You can't opt out and then be, like there's the malicious piece of it. Anyways, I don't know. It's just wild. I think the other big reason we're talking about it, like the opt out is one, and then there's just everyone's got an iPhone. There's an iPhone everywhere. You're gonna walk there. That tag is gonna see an iPhone even in weird spots, unless it's in like.
But the thing is, now it's not even just an iPhone. Now it's also an Android phone with the release of the Android app.
And I guess my point is they did this because people wanted to know if they were being tracked, right? That's why they made the Android app, right? For the other part too, right? But this would be like the bigger, the flip side. So
the only other company that can really compete with Apple in this market is Google. Like they're the only other one with an entire cell phone network that they could tap in such a similar way. Like I don't know how things are going at Tile. I'm assuming if Tile is still around, that it's not going great. like the only company that could compete is Google. If Apple has now got its network connected over to Google, Google's got to almost come back and say, okay, so we've made our version of this product, and now we need to make a big incident, in order to actually say like, okay, you need to put it on your Apple store as well, Apple.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this brings up a whole nother thing too, where advertisers are tracking people via Bluetooth, right?
Oh yeah.
Because Bluetooth's on all the time, and you can use that as a unique identifier. This went to the same with Wi-Fi. That was the other way to track for a while. Because the MAC address, and then Apple eventually turned down the broadcasting a ton, so that it becomes a lot harder to track with an Apple device now for Wi-Fi. This is just actually, at least this version of tracking, I can get something I care about back. Right. The other ones, they were just tracking me for fun, right? I mean, for money. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm going to take that moment right here to introduce Ralph May, who just popped in right in the middle of that discussion. We were introducing ourselves for the audio side of the webcast. So now you can hear Ralph May's voice. If you say hi, Ralph.
Hi.
There you go. Okay, we've gotten that done. So moving on.
Yeah. Well, I didn't want to miss the very last talking about the news for the year. So
that's right. The final newscast.
The final. Yeah. For sure.
Final revision 4.
Yeah, exactly.
Keep saying the final newscast, and someone's gonna miss it of 2021. They'll be like, "What? It's done."
That's it. That's the joke. Exactly.
That's the joke. You ruined it. Thanks. Now everyone knows.
So, as we come to the end of the year, there's been an overwhelming avalanche of stuff happening. Can we really just summarize any of it? There's almost, I'm looking at our list here. You can kind of see in our thumbnail. There's just too much to pick from in some ways. But we have any?
I mean, there's some basic summaries you could do. Patch your stuff, collect your logs, read those logs. There
you go. And yes, Movix there. That's exactly was my intention, because you got the inside joke. Why aren't you on the show? He's probably doing his own thing. I know why he's not on the show.
My first thought with looking at ransomware in 2021 is 2022 is going to be worse.
Oh
yeah. We're if you're looking at a bell curve, we're still climbing. You look at every vulnerability that's out there, every potential exploit. Like, one of the first things you see on the back end of it is ransomware or crypto miners or something like that, and it's just every time we get something like Log4j, which hopefully we don't get something that widespread for many more years, but it's gonna be tough every opportunity. It's because ransomware is able to take advantage of everything we preach, from password, bad password management and password reuse, lack of multi-factor authentication, not patching your stuff, like everything that we could preach day in and day out. That's what ransomware is taking advantage of it, and it's so opportunistic in most cases that it's just I'm ready to buckle up for a rough 2022.
Yeah, well, and they have no more disincentivization for ransomware than they did when they started. So,
and now they've got another easy, shiny tool they can use to augment their attacks.
I mean, those come out weekly. They come out weekly, it feels like, right? Just some of those bigger waves. I mean, how many waves did we have this year? Probably 3 I can think of that were huge vulnerabilities that came out that affected everyone, to the point where,
Oh, that does remind me of another takeaway. Like, if you're running on-prem Exchange, stop.
Yeah, I second that one.
Third, it's unanimous.
Vulnerabilities that Ralph mentioned, I think 6 of them were on-prem. So.
Yeah. And the worst part is, I know Microsoft's yeah, listen to them. Get that Office 365. Come on, guys.
Yeah.
They're so excited. Every time there's a vulnerability for Exchange, I feel like Microsoft stock goes up a little, right? But
It's gotta. Yeah.
Oh my god. But yeah, stop running Exchange on-prem. It's bad.
All right, anybody got a favorite store they want to pick out of this list here?
Well, I was just gonna say, like, if anyone is using Kronos payroll, I feel sorry for you. Hopefully, you get your paycheck before Christmas.
Oof, that's a tough one.
Yeah, like that's not ideal. I'm not sure quite the status of this as of today, but I do know that was hurting some of my old coworkers that I knew at a point as well. So feel for you guys, and for that, like, Kronos got hit with ransomware. So their major payroll processor. Yeah. So there's a lot of people that don't get paid this Friday necessarily.
That's Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year's.
Yeah, pretty much. Kind of sucks, like I said.
Looks like this. Here's another one that just kind of popped up on my radar: the Microtech vulnerability. It's there's a.
Ooh, I haven't seen that.
Yeah, there's one, two. Wait, no, those are the old ones.
What link are we talking about? Is it on the list here, or is this something you got?
Yeah, so it's in Hacker News. So 300,000 Microtech devices found vulnerable to remote hacking bugs. I thought this was a new vulnerability, but now that I'm looking at it, there's just people using them as botnets, which I think is kind of interesting.
For
everyone who doesn't know, Microtech's like I can't remember where they're from now. They're not US based. I know that for a fact. I want to say they're Czech based almost.
I was just about to say, I think they're Czech Republic or.
Yeah, so they make like prosumer enterprise style routers, switches, some other stuff like that. The pricing point is really good, and they're very powerful devices. A lot of them include all the routing protocols, all the other fun stuff, right? But yeah, I mean, no surprise, a bunch of these online getting exploited. I have a couple of these devices that I've used for different projects and other things like that. And again, they're super, super powerful, but I do feel like their security model is, you better configure it. Let's put it that way, right?
Well, they do have a history of having significant vulnerabilities and things like that. They do. I will give them credit. They are pretty responsive on patches and things like that. But then again, a lot of these devices, it's all up to the end user to actually implement those patches and stuff. And a lot of times you're talking about the consumer, prosumers, home use and stuff like that. I don't really think I've ever seen Microtech in the enterprise. Except
I have. But you see it pretty commonly in some of these OT networks occasionally, especially with vendors. Like, vendors will put there's a very common Microtech device that's basically a reverse VPN, like, modem router thing. So they'll put that into your OT network, so that way they can call back in to provide support as needed. And it's pretty much just written into the warranty that you either have that device in there or you don't get support.
That's kind of funny.
Yeah. No, I've seen Microtech sitting around in plenty of places. You're like, oh, okay.
I've mostly seen that in the hospitality industry and hotels.
Yeah,
interesting.
Not as access points, but primarily switching infrastructure.
It's weird. They're very powerful routers.
I actually do have a couple of Microtech devices personally. They're little desktop 10 gig port. I can't remember the model numbers and stuff. It's like $140, but super powerful. Be able to run 10 gig, either Ethernet or fiber. Point to point is freaking awesome especially at that price. But like I said, historically they have had a fairly long list of vulnerabilities. They are well known to be included in botnets and stuff, but I will give them credit. They are typically fairly responsive in terms of getting patches out and stuff, but those patches are ultimately pushed down to the end user's responsibility to apply them, which is why we see Microtech devices and botnets quite frequently, because they're just not being patched.
Well, from what I've seen of Microtech devices, it's more of there's a dialog window where it's like, download the patch file, and then upload it to your device. It doesn't. I haven't seen many of them that are like, oh yeah, click here to check for updates. Oh, I found updates. Can I install those? Yes or no?
Yeah,
It's built in now. Yeah.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely built in now. But what I was going to bring up is that like any of the either prosumer or enterprise products that end up being better at security, right? Like overall, is ones that have an automatic patch management system like built into their design, right? Not just like something that I manually have to go visit on every device. Something I can manage devices at scale, either
Right.
updating hundreds of devices, being able to manage devices all in one place. So that you can bring them into that you usually see a lot less of what I like to call like lonely islands, right? Where some device gets stuck out there forever and it doesn't get any updates, but it's still doing its job and nobody ever says anything, that kind of thing, right? So, I mean, if you're looking from a security standpoint, I feel like, that's definitely something that you should be looking for from manageability that actually in turn increases your security because now you can get a better view of what's all out there. So.
Yeah.
Oof. What else we got? Malvertising, stealth rootkits, so much. WordPress sites getting hacked.
Is that really news though?
I know it's not.
So the actual news in that is, I don't know the exact number. I'm just gonna. I think it was somewhere like 1.3 million or something like that. It's 1.3 million WordPress sites are being hacked again.
Yeah, there was a plugin issue if I recall with that one.
It's funny too. WordPress gets such a bad rap, but it's just a big attack surface. So like it's just gonna,
and if you use custom plugins and everything else, then it gets bigger and bigger, and
and that's
really
the issue
on WordPress.
Like I'd love to actually sit down and do the research of looking at the vulnerabilities. How much of it is WordPress core versus the ridiculous library of plugins that are available, whether it's templates or all the modules and different stuff like that. Like that's where I would say the majority of the vulnerabilities lie, because now not only do you have to update your WordPress core, you need to update all these individual modules and stuff like that. And
it's funny, dude. WordPress has come so far too from like where it originally started. Now it has these auto updates and all this other fun stuff. But the big things they come down to the plugins, which is one of its biggest features. And interestingly enough too, whenever you do build a WordPress site, you realize that it is not free because all of the features integrated into this monster PHP application end up costing money. So.
Yep, and your themes aren't really free and all that stuff.
Yeah, the sky's the limit, right? So
everything has a cost.
Yeah, and I mean everything kind of should, right? Like, not to. Yeah, I mean it's just that, like, people are developing it, you want support, all this other fun stuff, right? Nobody works for free, or they probably shouldn't. So, do you guys see this Firefox Windows cloud clipboard feature? So I guess Windows has got a cloud clipboard. For anyone who doesn't know, it's actually disabled by default.
Thank goodness.
Thank God, right? And so what this does is like you can copy stuff, and then like on another system that's logged into your Microsoft account, right? It'll have the keyboard, right? Apple actually has the same thing too. But I guess this feature was leaking passwords from Firefox, which is kind of interesting. So username and passwords copied from the browser selection, or Mozilla fixed it, but that they were getting usernames and passwords copied from the browser were getting put into the Windows Cloud Clipboard feature instead of just being locally, so on a separate clipboard.
Oh, okay, legitimate question. Why would I need my clipboard to be synced across devices?
First, don't ask questions. Second, it's so convenient.
I use that all the time.
It's not an issue. It's a feature.
Convenient. Like, okay, you say it's convenient to accomplish what?
I mean,
the only use case I can actually kind of justify this not in the cloud aspect of it, but as if you're running something like I don't even know what it's called today. Seamless. It used to be Synergy, where it's like the IP based KM software, keyboard mouse.
Right.
So you can run sharing across keyboard across a local clipboard across the local network. Perfect. But when you bring the cloud into this, you completely lost me, Microsoft.
When you bring the cloud, you bring.
Just think of it like this: like, so you're writing a paper, right? And you're not using Office 365 online. You're using like Open Office or something like that. So you want to go from your desktop to your laptop because you have to go to the coffee shop to meet your friends. So you copy it to your clipboard, so that way you can then go to the coffee shop and then paste it into your new document. That's got to be it.
But
no, that's
that's the only one.
So
that's got to be the use case.
All right. So
what you do is you just copy it into a draft email, leave it in your email address folder, open it up your email when you get to the coffee shop. That's how everybody else does
it. Draft emails, Sneakernet.
Yes, because you want that on your email server.
Yeah, it's on prem, by the way.
I have used this with the iCloud or Apple's implementation of the exact same product, right? Or you're just pretty much copy and pasting. And it is convenient to a certain degree, right? Especially if you use something like all the randomly generated passwords, that I use. But the other one is just I don't know. Like, there's been a couple use cases where I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. Oh, here's one. All right, this one does not apply to Microsoft. So, but on Apple, I use it a lot for the phone because if I have something really long, I don't want to type that in on my phone. And so it's kind of like, how do you do that? And so with that, you can actually just on your Mac, you can copy something, and then on your phone, you just right click and paste, right? Magic.
But isn't that's the handoff thing? Isn't that local? Does it actually go to the cloud?
No. Well, you have to enable it. I'm not sure if it does use the cloud. I know if Apple's probably got their hand in it, though. They're probably doing a lot of on-device stuff, like either Bluetooth or whatever, right? They don't really. I don't know.
Yeah, I thought it was like same. You have to be within a certain distance of the other device, and it's sent over local.
Is it just
something
copying over Miracast?
Yes. It sends it out in a broadcast message, so everybody can read it. Yes.
And until I've experienced a valid use case, I'm gonna stand my ground, going, why?
I mean, like I could maybe see it if it weren't for the fact that browsers have the ability to take it. You can hit in, like, say you have Chrome on your iPhone, or if you're using Android, it works even better. And then you have like Chrome on your Windows PC, right? And you're like reading an article on your phone and you want to push it to your Windows PC. You can do that. Like, Chrome has that built in. I could, if it didn't have that built in, maybe I could see a cloud keyboard, but I don't.
All right, this may be a what do you call it? Debatable issue, but I think that the Windows keyboard should be in LSASS, right? All of it. So all of it should be in an encrypted store, because I just assume everything in my clipboard is probably sensitive, right?
Yeah.
I mean, just thinking about everything that you copy or paste, right? I mean, a lot of times it's just long stuff that you don't want to type out, right? That's like the biggest use case, but I'm sure sensitive stuff ends up in my clipboard all day long. Right.
Oh, I used to have a lot of fun with the get clipboard commandlet from PowerShell.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you could. I found basically a software that was just sitting there. It was like an asset management software, constantly running that, and I'm like, you cannot be using that for anything good. Like, you can't tell me that that's got a valid reason to be doing that. So
yeah, no, definitely. But thanks, Microsoft. You've given us a gift, and it'll be exploited somehow. It'll be like one of those like enterprise attacks where like everyone's key or clipboard was being uploaded to SharePoint or something, and like we just saw everything just as we need that. Ooh. What else we got besides Log4j? There's like 14 Log4j articles in here.
Yeah, we're just avoiding those. We don't want to talk about that.
It's really not a big thing. If you just ignore it, it'll go away.
Yeah. That's the more you
simple,
ignore
just
it.
stop logging, and you're good.
Stop logging. Disconnect your toasters just in case, and be on your way.
You know what? You just got to encrypt all your log data. Right.
Now that said, if you do have Log4j on your toaster and your toaster is connected to your Wi-Fi and you're running Rita in your home network, it will probably detect it if you get a beacon going. Just saying.
Well, I mean, I can't imagine what your toaster is logging, like how burnt your toast is.
I can only imagine though too, like the beacons coming off of a toaster anyhow, just like from the factory.
Do you know how frustrating I would be if I found out my toaster was logging better than some of the commercial applications I use? Oh. Like, just send companies, here's a toaster. It does the job better.
Oh god.
Oh, that's actually pretty great.
Yeah, I don't know. We don't need any more IoT stuff. That's gonna be the real killer in the future. I say the future's now, but just all those IoT devices coming online with like last month support of whatever, that's it. Like it's done. Like it's connected to the internet, but like it's not getting an update ever again, right? Like this thing
running
is
Linux kernel version 2 and yeah.
The
MIPS. We can ping Google. We did it, guys, and that's it. Like that's at the end of the effort for it. Yeah, I mean, and you know, we're talking about 2022 and the even the rise of ransomware and stuff. Like, yeah, great when your toaster gets ransomwared and your refrigerator and everything else. It's going to be a joy.
Yeah, I'd like to see like this toaster has been ransomware. Like, what?
Yeah,
I would if I
it prints a label on your toast. The toast has been
with a Bitcoin
ransomed.
Oh my god, dude! This is a pretty advanced toaster. This thing's got to be pricey.
But at the same point, you're like, but it's a $40 toaster. Like,
yeah, but it's got an ESP32 in it, and
yeah, no kidding. Oh, sounds like a good webcast. How to hack your toaster.
That would be fun for like the one toaster that actually is possible to do that.
Yes, probably.
This didn't make the notes, but I just saw it this actually to our friend Steve. Have you guys seen the Windows subsystem for Android?
Oh yeah,
I had
not extensively, but
yeah, I'm just it's kind of exciting because it's like now we can execute Linux payloads and Android payloads all in the confines of our Windows environment.
Yeah, isn't that fantastic?
I think I'm a big WSL fan, and I think this is going to be really beneficial for some of the stuff we even do here at Black Hills, such as mobile application testing and stuff like that. Being able to load the APKs directly into a little more robust platform and stuff like that. I'm just interested to see how long before we start seeing an article. It'll probably be 3 or 4 years before we see an article about malware hiding in WSA. Despite pen testers and stuff have been doing it since 2021.
Right. Well, and of course, like the other perk is this gives you a completely native way to just run Java code on Windows 11. So you got that.
So you're saying Log4j is coming back? No.
I'm saying it wouldn't surprise me if we see that.
It'd be interesting.
So, did you guys see the article? I guess Verizon is overriding users' opt-out preferences for collecting their browser history. So, like, I've got a couple questions here. Like, why the hell is Verizon collecting my browser history? And two,
money.
Why would they make an opt-out and then remove the ability after people started all opting out of this?
Yeah. Well, first off, I can say that I know they sent a message to all their customers saying like, hey, by the way, we're tracking this. Mm-hmm. And then if you'd like to opt out, like go to the Verizon app and just hit the opt out button basically. And pretty much everyone did. So
that worked too well.
The problem was that they told us there was an opt out option.
Oh,
so was this just limited to like Verizon cell phone customers, or was this also like their FiOS customers?
It looks like cell phone.
Mostly cell phone, but
Okay.
I'm sure if iOS people want to give them their browser history, they would gladly take it.
Oh, they don't have to
They
try.
already have it.
Yeah, they just set the DNS name or the IP address to Verizon, and then whenever you misspell a name on a browser, you get Verizon's thing, and that's just them collecting all that DNS data. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
But we could also argue Google does the same thing. I mean, TLS over DNS was just a way to make sure it went to me first, right? But it's more secure. You know what I mean?
The Custom Experience Program. It's a great name.
Yeah, I was actually, when I saw it, I was kind of like, wow, this is pretty cool, because it gave you like 7 levels of opt-out that you could pick from. And so,
Perfect.
of course, I just opt out of all of them. And they didn't like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess Verizon was fined in 2016 for inserting super cookies that identify customers without their knowledge or consent. Beautiful. So they're making, the only reason they did this big opt-out thing was because they got in trouble last time. So
Yep.
It wasn't that much.
Now they're
though.
doing it, but they're just not paying any attention to whether or not you flip the switch.
Yeah.
This button does nothing.
So this way in their trial this time around, they could be like, but we gave them an option to opt out. Like, it was there. There was a switch.
It's more like a poll to see how many users would be interested in opting out. And then we'll run the numbers and we'll get back to you.
If it's too high, then we're just going to shut down that program.
We're gauging interest.
If it's too low, we'll keep it going. I guess it was too high, then they had to relaunch the program and opt everyone back in. So now you have to re-opt back out.
Yes. They didn't send you a text message this time either.
Yeah, see?
Well, we notified you once, so you should just assume.
There you go.
This is like a virus. What doesn't kill you mutates and tries again.
Probably not the first time Verizon's been described that way.
Oh, man. Any
But I
other
mean,
ones?
like, we're ripping on Verizon, but I mean, of my other cell carriers I've had, I haven't been much more impressed with any of them either, to be honest. It's kind of, you have like 6 options and none of them are good.
You have like 2 options, or maybe 3 if you're lucky, and all 3 of them are the same.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile.
Yep, that's
Most
it.
of them, yeah.
Because everybody else just leases off of those.
Yeah, yeah. Which is a fun fact. If you want to get a cheap cell phone plan, you can pretty much all those like Boost Mobile and all, they're all using the same. They're like literally on Verizon's network, right? The only difference is like some prioritizing of
Data
bandwidth
traffic.
and stuff. Yeah, data traffic. But other than that, though, you're never gonna have a problem making a phone call or like that's the thing you're worried about, anyways.
I'm not sure. I can't remember who it was. I want to say it was Boost or something. But they literally used it wasn't Boost. But they used the exact same Verizon coverage map. They just changed the colors of it. It's like nationwide coverage. I'm like, I've seen that map somewhere.
Yeah, I think if I recall, Boost is actually under, it was Sprint, which is T-Mobile.
Sprint, yeah.
But
yeah. I can't remember which one, because there's so many, because you got like Boost, you got Cricket, you've got Pure Talk, like there's just, I mean, even Spectrum Mobile now, I believe they're on Verizon, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Yeah, it's, what's crazy is that you can switch to one of those and frequently save a lot of money.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. The other thing too I found out is that eSIMs, you don't really need a SIM card anymore. All the new phones support eSIMs, so you can actually switch to these carriers just like at will, without being like, oh, I got to order a SIM card for that carrier or whatever. You can just put that at eSIM.
Yeah, I'm actually getting ready to go dual SIM on my iPhone. That way, I have my personal number and then an eSIM for stuff that I don't actually want to deal with. And things like that. And I'm actually really excited about being able to do that.
Yeah. That way you can like be talking to random people and be like, oh, that's awesome. Give me your phone number. You can be like, yeah, here you go. And you write it down and you can get the text message and prove you actually have it. And then you can ignore it for the rest of the time.
Well, and it's also like really beneficial if you travel a lot or things like that, where you can get a local SIM card or a local eSIM and not even have to deal with the actual physical card and stuff like that. And my guess is the iPhone 13, that's the latest one. Does it actually still have a physical SIM, or is it going all eSIM? Okay, my guess is in the next generation or two, we're going to just see all eSIM.
Yeah, we'll probably see a move to eSIM. Ooh, and another article here. It looks like Volvo, the safest cars in the world, I think. I don't know. They still kind of are. It looks like they had a breach, one of their file repositories. This is actually directly from Volvo. Was accessed by a third party, and they have a limited investigation or an investigation going on about what may have been stolen. But don't worry, the safety of your cars are fine. You're not going to drive off the road or something. But that brings up a good point, though. When something like this does happen in the future, and you can take control of cars, I'm talking to you, Tesla. You know, what are we going to do in that scenario, right?
I think the day that we get at least ransomware on a Tesla is coming.
Jesus, dude.
Like, this Tesla has been ransomed. It's inevitable.
I think that's super scary, but also it's kind of like, all right, let's think about this at a bigger scope. Why haven't we had or seen a ransomware attack on the iPhone? Is it just that it's just we haven't made it there? Like we're still on the on-ramp? Or is it just the barrier to entry is just too high, right?
I just heard that Apple was immune to all viruses.
That's a fact. Yeah, no, definitely. Yes, I'm buying their stock right now after that fact. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I think it goes back to a conversation we had many weeks ago dealing with some of the zero-day markets and stuff like that. And we were talking about how much zero days cost and stuff like that. And, I think if you look at like some of the vulnerabilities that the NSO group and things like that have created and stuff, there's so much effort and research that goes into it. It's like, do they want to burn the point that you guys made? Counter to my point was that, do you want to burn all that just at one time and see a mass ransomware attack or something like that in the iOS ecosystem? Because the returns on that could be very, very little and potentially catastrophic depending on who you piss off in the process. So I think that's probably part of the reason why we haven't seen one, because there's definitely been I don't want to say an abundance, but there's been quite a few, zero-click iOS vulnerabilities. There's also stuff in the Android ecosystem. I think it's really just about the returns that you would net as a result of that attack as to why we haven't actually seen them.
Well, and I think
has there been ransomware for Android?
Maybe.
I don't think there has been.
No, but what I'm saying, there's been zero-click vulnerabilities in the same way that there has in the iOS. So if I can get remote code execution to a vulnerability, a ransomware capability is trivial at that point. So it comes down to a decision that has to be made by the operator as to what their end objective is, and I think a lot of it's been more strategic than just a generic ransomware attack, and that's why we haven't seen it.
Yeah.
I would also say that phones are more throwaway to an extent. So if you get ransomware on a phone, people will be like, "Oh, I was thinking about upgrading anyhow." I'm not saying everyone would say that, but there would be a number of me like, "Oh, I was thinking about upgrading anyhow." You'd actually be way better to do ransomware against like Apple's cloud systems or something like that, because
because if you look at it, what is valuable on a phone? It's just the data. And so, if I look at it as, oh, this device is locked up, you could literally treat it as I just typed in my child got my iPhone and typed in my passcode 10 times wrong, and it just erased itself.
Dropped it in the toilet, ran it over with the car. It's
the same effect. My data is not necessarily impacted by that. Whereas if you look at some of the malware and things that have been out there specifically for iOS, once it's on the device, it's targeting that data, either through looking who you're talking to and things like that, as well as being able to access your accounts and stuff. That's where the value is. So if you kind of extrapolate that out, ransomware doesn't really necessarily make sense, especially because if you charge them, it's like, oh, your device has been ransomed, pay us $400. No, I'm just going to go get a new device.
I could just go get a new one. Yeah.
And so you have to make that price. So, you're going to have some people that's like, oh, it's $25. Okay, I'll do that.
Right.
but-
Every day it just gets re-ransomed for $25. You're like renting it by the day at this point.
There's somebody in overseas that's just going like, I can't. They're doing this. Come look at this. Come look at this.
Come look.
Did it again.
Yeah.
I think the reason that we don't see ransomware on like phones and stuff, and I kind of agree with you guys' point, they really kind of are, but like a throwaway device, right? Like, I'll just get another one, whatever. But I think the reason we don't see the big massive ones is that, these ransomware operators actually want to get to keep the money. So if they kick the hornet's nest too hard, that, it's going to be really hard. And they're looking for targets that are known to pay and known for them to be able to keep the money. So that's what I think they're going after: individual enterprises or other organizations, like companies, as opposed to individuals. It started with individuals. In fact, actually, that's really where ransomware started, on individual computing machines, because obviously security's low, but the payout wasn't that great, and the effort would still be high, right? Because now I know I can only get $100 from every person, so now I got to get like way more systems, whereas I can just get one organization and make millions, right? But I think it just comes down to the rewards in general, and that if you were to lock out every iPhone in America, for example, assuming that was possible, right, or like the large majority, I think that the ramifications of that wouldn't be worth the reward. Why would I do that if I have a 0-click O-Day? Let's assume that that's what it took. I could sell that for millions, walk away with the cash, and never even be responsible for anything that happened after that, right? So
the benefits are just not there, especially when you look at, the devices are just a portal for accessing data. And if you care about that many people, our individuals' data and stuff, you're going to they're targeted anyway, and that's what we've seen with these iOS malwares and stuff from the likes of NSO Group and other actors. It's a highly
targeted.
Because you've got so much time, you've got so much money and R&D invested in it. You don't want to get it burned if you can help it. And so the return on investment. I mean, like if you go for maximum chaos, sure. Like, and sometimes I sure, why not? Let's hit the button and see what happens. For a widespread iOS ransom. But I don't. I'm honestly not sure that the actual impact of that would be too large, because it's like, it's a bunch of e-waste, but all of my data is still intact in most cases, unless they piggyback that ransomware attack for something larger.
Right.
I mean, you bricked them all. I mean, stock will either go up or down. What do you think?
Now, what happens if Apple gets ransomware?
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you go for those servers that have all that data on it, that's
a different story. Yeah,
that's a target to hit with ransomware. But
are we turning this episode into what should ransomware operators do? Because I feel like we're just going down a bad road here.
Yeah, that's a good, valid point.
We've been there. We've the bad idea episodes. Those come up sometimes. Oh yeah, this is what I did. Yeah, this is how you totally get away with it.
2 weeks later in the news. Wish we hadn't said that.
Yeah.
The ransomware actors quoted BHIS. No.
Yes. Novel technique.
That's not the kind of popularity we're going for here.
No.
Are we really going for popularity? Why do we do this show again? I'm just kidding.
We do this show to tell everyone else about the news.
It's definitely for the ratings.
It's for the ratings.
It's definitely for the ratings. I mean, this is we're
smash that button. Excuse me.
Hit the like button.
Hit the like button.
I mean, we're
not looking for that kind of ratings.
Sorry, I didn't mean to affect the ratings so much.
That's the show after this one. No.
Oh my gosh. Well, now I will say this though, since this really is the last episode, this does wrap up the. I think this was the first year we did this, right?
First year of the show?
Yeah. Or did we start it in 2019?
I think we started it 2020.
Yeah, I think. 2020. Sorry, I don't even know what year it is, man. What year is it?
Yes,
1956.
I was trying to think how many episodes I watched before I came on, and I think it was like 16 or 18, something like that. So, and then I would have came on in March. So, whatever that means.
Glory Strike says
Yeah.
it's 2020.
Well,
I believe him.
This is the first full year, so how about
Yeah,
that?
this is the first full year, exactly, of us ranting about security news and talking about people either making mistakes or, major vulnerabilities that now we all have to go clean up, which is kind of a nightmare. We get to kind of talk about it, but other people have to like worry at night, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, that's why we do the show, is hopefully to let people know before it gets too bad, so they're not finding out after the attack. They're finding out on the on the show. So finding out that it's a wave coming toward them.
Indeed. Any last articles, subjects, topics? I guess
No, unless we want to. Yeah, unless we want to rant about Log4j for an hour. There's a bunch of those, but I didn't have anything else. Check your toaster. Yeah. Disable your Exchange server. Move that. Get that out of there. And get ready for ransomware, because I think it is going to get worse. It's pretty bad, but it's regrettable.
Straw poll: how many more CVEs do we get for Log4j in the next 6 months?
10 more CVEs. Oh my god, that'd be brutal, dude.
Well, the next question is, how many are those related to the patches for Log4j, or are they the initial?
Yeah, I think it is kind of a tidal wave, right? So like the earthquake happened, but now we're just waiting to see who may be affected, and that wave takes a second to get there in this sense, because there's vendors back end who are still trying to figure out what's going on, man.
Yeah, and we're gonna have aftershocks and seismic
activity
in this for a very, very long time.
Like it's drawn the public eye, so now people are going to start looking at it more. Yeah.
I talked to one customer last week, and they just go, "We don't know yet. Like, we know we're impacted, but it's going to take us a while to actually drill down and figure, because it's so integrated into things. It's not as simple as, I mean, even if you have a inventory of all your software and applications, how many people have an inventory of all of their libraries and dependencies? Like,
right.
You only need to miss one, right?
Well, and maybe if you're counting on your vendors to patch things, if you have end of life devices, which, as much as we like to say that they don't exist, they do exist. If there's end of life devices that aren't going to get the patch, as we said beginning of the episode, billions of devices run Java, and they have been for a while.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be like, it's one of those things that, as John said last week, it's, as pen testers and stuff, we're like, yay, this is going to be, this is going to be fun for a couple of years. But at the same time, having been on the defensive side and had to identify, like, my heart goes out to these guys, especially at Christmas time. And they're just like, we're going to do our best. And it just seems like every day there's something. Oh, that was an incomplete patch. Here's a new CVE. Oh, this patch has got a different RCE in it, and
yep,
they definitely have the heart into defending an organization, identifying and remediating against this, because there's not a blanket remediation. In some cases, you can patch, but if you're waiting on the vendor, there's some stuff you can do intermediately, but you got to be able to identify all that, and it's tough.
What a wonderful way to end the year.
Yeah, on a high note.
Sure. High stress note, but it's a high note.
Yeah, right. Well, I guess that's it. Everybody have a great Christmas and Happy New Year, right? See you guys back in 2022. I think I got the year right this time.
You got it right.
Are we going January 3rd? First one?
Whenever we come back to work, I think it's the 3rd.
It's January 3rd. Yeah,
nope, we're off that day.
Yeah. Are we off? Or maybe Tuesday. Are we on?
It is listed as
we'll figure it out.
we will figure it out, and as you guys all know, you'll just find it on YouTube, and we'll be good to go.
We'll be back. All right, later, guys.
I guess I gotta hit the video. I almost forgot about that part.
Take us out, Ryan.
All right, take us out.